I used to think that the media was there to inform us all of what was going on in the world, things that would be either of interest to us or going to impact our lives, and that the media would be there to inform us with accurate information about the nature of what was going on. That is how naive I was. That is what I believed it to be. It's not the truth. The truth is, it operates as a mind conditioning machine. It operates as a system of feeding us information that those who are in control of that media want us to believe about that situation. Okay, now I'm not going to get more into that at the moment. I'm just going to demonstrate this. So, we saw with our own eyes a sporting event unfold. We saw with our own eyes that the rules of that sporting event were perpetrated, were carried out, were enacted in a way that we had never seen them before. Live, the contracted media, which was Sky Sports F1, were lying to us, telling us that it's going to be possible for them to resume the race with the lapped cars in situ. We don't think it's mandatory that you have to get them out of the way. That's normally on a wet day in Belgium. All this lies before the supposed error. Then we got nothing else then got addressed with that. It was all a celebration, fully deserved it, blah, blah, blah. We've got then a different form of media, okay? A different source of information. Now, surely you would think rival media companies would like to be better than each other. They would like to inform us all as rivals, okay, of giving us information, our information, the information that we're putting out about this. Well, this is far better than what they're saying. They're not revealing the truth about this. This is the true manner of the situation. That's what I believed would be happening. That's not happening. When you realize that's not happening, it makes you ask the question, what is really going on in this world? So, we witnessed something take place in the sport. We knew it wasn't right. We knew that that then caused a change of the outcome of the sport. And this is how the media, a different form of media, who aren't contracted to be the live broadcaster by Liberty Media, the owner of the show, this is somebody who should be independent of that, accountable to the British people who all have to pay a license fee, or each household has to pay a license fee to fund this BBC, this media organisation. So we expect truth, we expect accountability, and we expect accurate information, not lies, not agenda, and certainly not for them to be criminals, peddling and enabling a fraud, which is exactly what the BBC have done. They are criminals. So the head of BBC at that time, I don't know if it's changed in the interim, they need to be imprisoned. The person writing this article, Andrew Benson, needs to be imprisoned for fraud. These are the two articles that Andrew Benson wrote on the day. I'm going to go through both of them. The first one in this video, the next one in the following one. So one is called Abu Dhabi Grand Prix, Max Verstappen win decided by a questionable call. As you can see, dated the 12th of December 2021. That received 5,888 comments. I believe that was the second article that he wrote on the day. I believe this is the first one. I might be wrong in the chronology, but they're both dated the 12th of December. This one is Max Verstappen wins title after last lap overtake of Lewis Hamilton. Mercedes protests rejected. So I'm going to go through the accuracy of this and demonstrate the slant that is put on the writing in order to encourage people to understand this a certain way and to believe it to be a certain way. And it completely ignores the true nature of the situation, covering it up. That's serving corruption. That's utilising your platform, utilising your position to aid fraud. That is exactly what Andrew Benson is doing. Now, let's be clear about that. That's a crime. Okay, fraud. Okay, fraud, a dishonest act such as false representation, failure to declare information, or an abuse of position. That is exactly what Andrew Benson of the BBC is guilty of. And I'm going to go through that with you now. So, 13,290 comments. This is what he wrote. By Andrew Benson, Chief F1 writer in Abu Dhabi. Red Bull's Max Verstappen snatched his first Formula One world title by beating Lewis Hamilton on the last lap of a thrilling season finale in Abu Dhabi. Then had to wait while the Britain's Mercedes team had two protests against the result rejected by stewards. Okay, so again, you look at the way writing is done. Oh, that was a bit of a spanner in the works. He's won, and then he's had to wait to be able to celebrate. That's a little bit harsh, isn't it? This is the way they want you to think about it. Hamilton had appeared in control of the race and on course for the title himself, despite controversy on the first lap, until a late safety car. So what we're doing, Hamilton was in control, but it was controversial that he was in control. So straight away undermining Hamilton, okay, until a late safety car, okay. So already he's undermining or putting question into the fact that Hamilton was leading that race, describing that as being controversial. The race was restarted with one lap to go, with Verstappen on fresh tyres and Hamilton on old ones, and the Dutchman swept by to win. So he's just described it was restarted with one lap to go and somebody on new tyres swept by. It shouldn't have restarted. The governing body broke the rules to restart it. They broke the rules to restart it knowing that one of those competitors now was massively advantaged. What's going on there, Andrew? Why have you just said it was restarted? Anyway, we'll continue on to see if Andrew addresses that in this article. Because, again, when media put out an article, that might be people's only understanding of the situation. They might have only read the one, not the second one. Let's see what Andrew is informing people. If people think they are getting an understanding of the situation from this account of that situation by Andrew Benson. The victor screamed with delight and Red Bull celebrated. Max felt really good about that. Tell us how Max feels, Andrew. Whilst Hamilton sat in his Mercedes for several minutes, disbelieving the way the events had turned against him in the final minutes. Lewis didn't feel very nice. Thank you for that, Andrew. We've just witnessed one of the biggest controversial moments in sport, which is actually fraudulent, and you're telling us how they feel. Thank you, Andrew. Okay, this is all about writing and informing the people of the information. Feelings. After he stepped off the podium as champion, Verstappen's celebrations were interrupted by Mercedes' protest. Did they come along whilst Max was celebrating and jumping in the crowd and spraying the champagne and say, stop there, stop spraying the champagne, stop cheering, okay, there's a protest, stop. Is that what happened? Is this the way you're portraying this, Andrew? And he had to wait more than 4 hours until he could resume those celebrations. Poor Max. He's just become a world champion. He's had to stop celebrating that precious moment of saying, oh, that was interrupted. That was ruined for him by Mercedes. And he couldn't then properly celebrate for another 4 hours. That's tainted it for Max, hasn't it? Poor Max. Thanks for that, Andrew. Though even Mercedes indicated they would appeal. Okay. So, this is a bit different, isn't it, Andrew? Do we normally have a sporting event and the person that has just been robbed of winning that event, do they normally appeal like that? And will they continue to appeal? Why would they be appealing? Who was robbed? Was it a British man who was on course to set a new record in the history of the sport, Andrew? Lewis Hamilton on course to become a record-breaking 8-time world champion in this sport, surpassing the previous historic record of Michael Schumacher's 7 world championship titles. A British guy was on course to break that. You are representing the British Broadcasting Corporation, broadcasting primarily to the British people, and you're telling us how poor, how unfair this was to the Dutch guy, Max Verstappen, who illegally was gifted something. Let's feel sorry for him, shall we, Andrew? So, it was, in so many ways, a fitting end. It was a fitting end, was it, Andrew? To see the rules broken and the guy that was being obliterated all race gifted the championship. Is that fitting, is it, Andrew? In whose opinion is that, Andrew? Is that a fact that it's fitting, Andrew? Is it an opinion that you want people to hold and share, Andrew, because of the way in which you are describing the situation? You want to make them feel that it was fitting, don't you, Andrew? To one of the greatest and most contentious seasons in Formula One history. And the arguments over right and wrong will rage for some time to come. Well, no, arguments can easily be settled when people are informed, when you can explain situations, when you can highlight the error of people's ways, then you can make sure that that argument goes away. Now, it wasn't one of the greatest seasons. It was one of the most disgusting seasons we've ever seen, whereby the sport didn't impose the rules of the sport. They facilitated one driver to break the rules of the sport to artificially manufacture a tight title battle. That's not sport, is it, Andrew? That's the show that you are paid to broadcast, isn't it, Andrew? You are the chief F1 reporter. You are the BBC's employed expert of this sport and are unable to point out that dynamic, aren't you, Andrew? That's rather strange. Well, it's not strange. It highlights your biases and reasons why your biases are what they are. You're being paid to peddle the agenda. You are being paid to sell the show. You're nothing more than a salesman, Andrew. You're a salesman. So, it was a fitting way. So, we'll go through the David Coulthard interview because this is a video that they put within the article. We'll do that as a separate video. I've done it already and we'll do it again because each time we go through these, we can pick out more. Okay, so beyond that, we've got various links. And we'll go through those links as well and see the accuracy of Andrew Benson's writing. How a historic title decider unfolded. The race had appeared to surrender to Hamilton. Oh, it all appeared to fall into the lap of Lewis Hamilton. Is that what you're trying to say to us, Andrew Benson? It appeared to surrender to Hamilton after he was controversially allowed to keep the lead he had earned with a better start than Verstappen. Again, look at how he is describing this. Lewis Hamilton qualified second, starts the race on medium compound tyres, what we are informed to be less grippy than the soft compound tyre. There is a guy on pole position, position 1 in that starting grid, on the grippiest compound of tyre that's supposed to give you the best start of that race. And Lewis Hamilton in second place on a poorer tyre for that, beat him off the line and took the position. Oh, is that falling into Lewis's lap, is it? Okay. No, it was a guy doing a better job. A guy outperforming the other guy. On that first lap, Max Verstappen threw his car into an overtaking manoeuvre that, had Lewis Hamilton not have evaded Max Verstappen's car, that manoeuvre would have resulted in a collision between those cars. What Max Verstappen was guilty of was crowding his opponent off the track due to driving in an illegal manner, a manner which breaches the driving code as detailed in the FIA's Code of Conduct for Driving. That is what Max Verstappen breaches. He's done so all 2021 season without being penalised for it, without being exposed for it. That was facilitated. The manoeuvre at turn 6 was an illegal manoeuvre. He crowded Lewis Hamilton off the track. Had Lewis Hamilton attempted to remain on track, there would have been a collision caused by Max Verstappen. That may have ended Lewis Hamilton's hopes. That may have ruined Lewis Hamilton's attempts to win a world championship. Lewis Hamilton did the right thing. He took evasive action. He shouldn't have had to take that evasive action. Max Verstappen should have been hit with a penalty for driving in that manner. Nobody describes it that way. The live commentary teams spend the next 20 minutes after the incident talking about, oh, Lewis got away with that. He should have had to give that place back. Oh, race control, they're giving Lewis an advantage here. They're disadvantaging Max Verstappen. That was what the agenda of Sky Sports F1 was telling the world. This is what Andrew Benson then repeats. Despite going off track to retain his position when the Dutchman tried to pass him at the end of the first back straight. And let's look at the amount of column inches, we'll call them, that Andrew dedicates to describing what took place on the first lap, casting a shadow over the legitimacy of Hamilton's manoeuvre in having to take evasive action. Red Bull and Verstappen were exasperated. Oh, they felt. How did Red Bull feel? Are you paid by Red Bull, Andrew, to tell us all how Red Bull feel? Is that who pays your wages, Andrew? Is that what this media outlet is? Is it Red Bull News to tell us how Red Bull feel? Do you want to tell us that Red Bull are the most nutritious drink on the planet? Incredible health benefits from drinking Red Bull Media, the mind conditioning machine. Are you starting to see what media is doing? So, Red Bull and Verstappen were exasperated and disbelieving about it. But Hamilton was imperious from then on, through a pit stop and virtual safety car until Nicholas Latifi crashed his Williams with 5 laps to go. Mercedes felt they could not afford to pit Hamilton because to do so would have been surrendering the lead if Hamilton did not do the same. Again, Mercedes felt, well, no, it's the fact that they couldn't pit him. If Red Bull didn't pit, they would have surrendered the lead. It's not a feeling, is it? And he may well not have done because his tyres were relatively fresh after a second stop. So, you're getting a full picture of this, aren't you? No, you're not. But when Hamilton did not stop for fresh tyres, Verstappen did, and that was a decisive call. Look at what the language being used is. Decisive. The decisive thing about this event is that Mercedes didn't stop and Red Bull did. That's not decisive. The thing that was decisive, the event in that Grand Prix that changed the outcome of that race, was the governing body of the sport breaking the rules of the sport. That is the decisive action, Andrew Benson. Had the governing body of the sport followed the rules of the sport, the result of that sporting event would have been one thing and one thing only, and that is Lewis Hamilton winning that Grand Prix, and with it winning the World Championship, which is a historic occurrence, a record-breaking 8th World Championship. That is the decisive thing that took place. The governing body breaking the rules of the sport to manufacture a last lap race between just two competitors when there are 14 competitors still running in that race. That is an illegal restart. That, I would say, is decisive, Andrew. Because what tyres are on your car is not decisive. It is irrelevant if the rules of the sport dictate that you can't race, because we are dealing with a safety concern, and before we go racing we have to carry out sets of procedures so that we restore the conditions for sporting fairness to everybody before we can resume racing. Oh, we didn't do that. Oh, it's now decisive that the tyres. Oh, well, they don't come into play if you follow the rules. You've ridden roughshod over the fact that the rules were broken, Andrew. As a media reporter, it is your responsibility to inform us accurately of that dynamic, not make people think that the decisive thing was just the tyres, which is irrelevant. There was more controversy. The notion, oh, there was controversy on the first lap. There was controversy at the end as well. It all balances out. This is what it, oh yeah, this is where the arguments are, but there'll be an argument. It's all a bit of it's all a bit of what people feel and what they think, isn't it, Andrew? That is what you're paid to present. That's the dynamic that you want to present. After director Michael Massey initially said lapped cars between Hamilton and Verstappen would not be allowed to unlap themselves, as is normal practice. What's controversial about that, Andrew? There was more controversy as race director Michael Massey initially said lapped cars between Hamilton and Verstappen would not be allowed to unlap themselves, as is normal practice. So let's explore that particular sentence, paragraph, whatever it is. So what we have here is, after the diversion to our attention of Red Bull retiring their second car, Sergio Perez, from third position in that race, when they are lapping at slow speed behind the safety car, no stress of the engine, Sergio Perez completely bewildered, shocked that there was a problem with his car because he didn't feel it, but that handed the constructor's title to Mercedes-Benz by doing so. Okay, after that diversion, we get informed of the notion of, oh, and lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake. I'll forward to that. So,
really? Yeah, box. And
that was Perez saying, really, we need to retire to car box. Immediately,
lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake.
David Croft, and lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake. This is the bit that Andrew Benson is describing as, there was more controversy as race director Michael Massey initially said lapped cars between Hamilton and Verstappen would not. Where is it between Hamilton and Verstappen? Why are you using the notion, Andrew, of between Hamilton and Verstappen? There's 8 cars that have been lapped. 3 of them weren't between Hamilton and Verstappen. Okay, there was Daniel Ricciardo, Lance Stroll, Mick Schumacher. They weren't between Hamilton and Verstappen. Why are you diverting the reader attention to this notion of between Hamilton and Verstappen? It's rather strange, isn't it, Andrew? As is normal practice. Why is it normal practice, Andrew? So, listen to Martin Brundle, the expert.
It's not mandatory in the regulation.
It's not mandatory in the regulations. It absolutely is. Once you deploy the safety car, you carry out these regulations. You have to wait until it's safe to do so, and then you have to follow this set of procedures. That's what it is. None of them are optional. You cannot resume racing unless you've performed these. And Martin Brundle, the expert, is telling you that is not the case. He is lying to the global world real time. And this banner that you then see put across the top of the screen, FIA Race Control,
which leaves Verstappen with a lot of work to do then.
That's an illegal banner. Lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake. That is not an official notification. The official notification is if it's not safe to overtake, the message overtaking will not be permitted will be sent to all competitors. And all that means is you're just going to continue lapping behind the safety car because that is the measure we are dealing with, we are employing to deal with a situation that is still not safe. And they are dressing this up as being something different, as being controversial in some way. Why would it be controversial, Andrew? Why would that be controversial when what is actually going on here at that moment in time, this is that exact moment in time, the recovery of the car that caused the safety incident. Nicholas Latifi's car, at that exact moment in time. See here, there's men on the track. There's marshals on the track. The track isn't safe. You don't carry out the procedure to release those lapped cars for the unlapping procedure until it is safe. What is controversial about that, Andrew Benson? The BBC's chief writer informing the world that there was more controversy as race director Michael Massey initially said lapped cars between Hamilton and Verstappen, which is a diversion. It's not just 5 cars between Hamilton and Verstappen, is it, Andrew? Why are you writing it like that? Lapped cars will not be allowed to overtake. That isn't an official message. Why are you saying it's controversial? When that message is given out, you can't carry out that procedure. It's not safe to. What's controversial about that, Andrew? Is that what Red Bull told you they feel? Is it, Andrew? Are you Red Bull TV, are you, Andrew? Are you Red Bull's form of media, Andrew? Who's paying your wages, Andrew? Whose agenda are you peddling? Whose lies are you perpetrating, Andrew? The sport of Formula One? Are you conditioning people to believe this about the fraud? Evidently you are. Okay, Massey initially said lapped cars between Hamilton and Verstappen would not be allowed to unlap themselves, as is normal practice. Is it normal for just the cars between Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen? Is that normal practice for them to unlap themselves? What's normal practice, Andrew, for the other cars that were lapped and are eligible to unlap? Is it normal practice that they have to unlap as well? When is it normal practice, Andrew? Is it normal practice that they're given that instruction to do so once it's declared safe to do so, Andrew? Oh, you're not saying any of that, are you, Andrew? Not saying any of that. Red Bull complained. Red Bull thought this was wrong. Red Bull felt that they were being disadvantaged. You tell us what Red Bull think, Andrew. And Massey changed his mind. That's wrong, isn't it? Allowing the lapped cars between the title contenders past Hamilton. That's not allowed. This is a multi-competitor event, Andrew, that you're reporting on, that you are the presented expert of reporting on. Can you not identify that in racing events, multi-competitor racing events, they can individually be won by all of those competitors competing? Yeah? So a stage on the Tour de France, if there's 100 guys that are lining up on the start line of that stage of the Tour de France, potentially any one of those could be the winner of that stage, couldn't they, Andrew? Okay, they don't just go, oh, who's in first place in the race for the yellow jersey? Who's in second place? Oh, just you two. Right, you two, off you go. Go. The rest of you we're not interested in. Do they do that, Andrew? No, they don't. No, they don't, because that's not allowed, is it, Andrew? So therefore, is it allowed in Formula One that that's what they do? No, it's not, is it, Andrew? Are you explaining that to people, Andrew? You're not, are you, Andrew? The expert. What are you conditioning people's beliefs with, Andrew? You're damaging people, Andrew. You're abusing people's minds, Andrew. You're abusing the minds of the children I've tried to educate, Andrew. You're gonna pay for this, Andrew. You're gonna pay for this. Frauds will be punished with jail sentences. So, Red Bull complained and Massey changed his mind, allowing the lapped cars between title contenders past Hamilton, which put Verstappen right behind Hamilton for the one remaining lap of racing. For the one remaining lap of racing. What is the legitimacy of that lap, Andrew? What is the required procedure, Andrew? Why is it a required procedure, Andrew? You've not told us. You've just said for the one lap of racing. What are you doing, Andrew? You are enabling a fraud, Andrew. You're not revealing that this is fraudulent. This is illegal. This is a breach of the rules and the regulations of the sport. This is how it has impacted everybody. Lando Norris, a British competitor who was then running in 7th position in that race, prior to the crash, trying to get the next car up the road, which is Pierre Gasly, who's now in 6th position. Prior to Latifi crashing, Lando Norris was 11.15 seconds behind Gasly. Due to using a safety car to deal with an incident, he has to wait behind the leader while this incident is cleared up, using that safety procedure. But Pierre Gasly disappears off around the track and joins the end of this safety car snake, effectively now almost a lap ahead of Norris. So 7th position now left a lap behind 6th, when previously he was only 11 seconds behind. Oh, you're not talking about that, are you, Andrew? So hence we have to carry out a mandatory procedure before we go racing again to restore sporting fairness to everybody before we can resume sport. Hence we have these regulations whereby if we have to intervene in the sport on the grounds of safety, we carry out this regulation before we resume that sport, Andrew. But you tell us controversially, oh, he controversially said the lap cars between Verstappen and Hamilton weren't going to be let by. Why is that, Andrew? Because there were men on the track still clearing the incident. And because of how long it actually took to clear the incident, it meant that then when we carry out this procedure, there can be no laps of racing left. Because the number of laps that this race is over are all used up due to the time taken. There can be no more racing. There can be no overtaking. Lewis Hamilton wins that race. He becomes a record-breaking 8th-time world champion, Andrew. It's not rocket science, is it, Andrew? But what you've put together is a carefully crafted account to condition people to believe it to be a certain way. To not highlight to people that this is entirely wrong. Whose agenda are you perpetrating, Andrew? Who are you abusing, Andrew? Dishonest acts, Andrew. False representation, Andrew Benson. Failure to declare information, Andrew Benson. An abuse of your position, Andrew Benson. Verstappen passed Hamilton into turn 5 and held off his attempts to repass down 2 straights that followed and completed the lap before erupting with joy. He felt joy. Tell us how Red Bull feel, Andrew. Don't talk us through the weaving, which is illegal, on that last lap. Don't talk us through passing Hamilton during that safety car situation when it was announced that that last lap was going to happen, when they were illegally restarting that race and Verstappen pulled an illegal maneuver in overtaking in those conditions. Don't talk about any of that, Andrew. No, just tell us about Red Bull erupting with joy. Yet whatever anyone's view, whatever anybody feels, is it about feelings or is it about facts, Andrew? Are you writing articles about how you feel, how Red Bull feel? Let's all feel. No facts. This is what happened. These are the rules. These are the regulations. This is the purpose of those rules. This is the purpose of the regulations. That didn't happen. What would that display? What would they have known? Could this be a mistake? How come everybody is making the same mistake? What are the odds of everybody making the same mistake? That would demonstrate that on the balance of probability, crime is taking place here, wouldn't it, Andrew? On the balance of probability. Or is it one of these once in a billion opportunities of a miracle? Is it a miracle that everybody made the same mistake here, Andrew, including you? Is it the racing gods that caused that miracle, Andrew? So, whatever anyone's view of the various incidents in the race, few would begrudge. Oh, nobody would want to deprive Max of being gifted the championship. Whatever anybody feels about it, is that what you want to tell us, Andrew? Is that what you want to make us feel? After a season in which he and Hamilton have gone toe to toe throughout in one of the most remarkable seasons. Oh, what enabled them to go toe to toe, Andrew? Was it for the fact that the infringements that Max Verstappen made, he wasn't punished for? He was allowed to force his opponent off the track. Had his opponent not been forced off the track, he'd have collided with them. He'd have taken him out of the race. And Red Bull are allowed to get onto the radio to the governing body and go, we call that let them race. Your driver has done the most disgusting two-footed challenge in football, and the manager of the team, of the guy that is doing all the fouling in football, gets on to the referee and goes, referee, that's just simply let them play football. And the referee's like, oh yes, we agree. We call that let them play football. Well, one guy's the one that's just allowed to go around kicking everybody in the manner that Vinnie Jones just did. And his team manager's going, well, this is just football, isn't it, ref? And the ref going, yes, we allow him to go around just kicking everybody like that. Is that how it is, Andrew? Does that make for one of the most amazing seasons ever, does it, Andrew? Is that what Red Bull feel, is it, Andrew? Is that what you're paid to validate, is it, Andrew? Evidently that's the situation, isn't it, Andrew? You're a fraud, Andrew. You're an abuser, Andrew. You're being paid handsomely, aren't you, Andrew, to abuse? Anyway, remarkable season there's ever been. Hamilton, mixed salesman. Hamilton, meanwhile, will have to console himself with Mercedes' victory in the Constructors' Championship for an unprecedented 8th consecutive year. What about being robbed of an unprecedented 8th Drivers' Championship, Andrew? Winning formula. Netflix resurgence. Sales man. You're not a man. You're not a man. First lap drum. So remember I said about column inches that Andrew has dedicated to the first lap controversy. Here it is. And let's compare this with the column inches he dedicates to the fix at the end. And we'll compare and contrast. So he's given us his overview. He's told us about controversy, which I've just demonstrated. There was nothing controversial about the announcement that, well, the thing is controversial about this notion that it was an illegal announcement about not unlapping. He's described it as only highlighting the fact that he was only talking about the 5 cars between Hamilton and Verstappen when he's talking about that being controversial. The the message given out to the world was fraudulent because that's not the official message. So you could tell something's going on there that's fraudulent, but it's not controversial in as much that you couldn't carry out the unlapping procedure there because there's men on the track. So he's diverting attention to suggest that was somehow controversial. So where is he wanting to draw people's attention? But now we're going back to controversy on lap 1. At the same time, it was a fitting way to end a season. Oh, this was fitting. This is the way things should have been. They deserve to be like this after what we've witnessed before. Really, Andrew? Characterised by on-track clashes and off-track arguments between Hamilton, Verstappen and their teams. Oh, it's all about arguments. Can we analyse who's in the right and who's in the wrong? Who is the perpetrator and who's the victim in this, Andrew? Oh, we'll let you argue about that. That increases social media engagement. That helps us sell. Oh, so media, you're not informing people about truth. You're just there to make money and sell things. Oh, that's what you really are, isn't it? Sell the agenda of those that are funding the media. Tell everybody the health benefits of drinking Red Bull, the most nutritious drink on the planet. For a longer, healthier life, drink Red Bull for life. Is that your next gig, is it, Andrew? So, the race unfolded as the season has, with Hamilton and Verstappen in a race and a league of their own. So if they're in a race of their own, was Sergio Perez not leading that race for a period in time? I thought it was just a race between 2 cars. Just 2 cars! Did Hamilton and Verstappen win every race that season? Or were races won by other drivers? Oh, they were won by other drivers, weren't they? As each of one of these races are contested by the entire field. What are you diverting us to, Andrew? And for a long time, the year's destiny appeared to be heading towards Hamilton. There was drama from the opening lap after Verstappen made a poor start from pole position. Hamilton an electric one from second on the grid, and the Mercedes was ahead before the first corner. Verstappen tracked him through the first few corners, slipstreamed him down the long first back straight, and dived for the inside into the chicane at turns 6 and 7. Verstappen got down the inside of Hamilton but went in deep to the corner, his speed carrying him to the outside of the curb long before the second right-handed part of the corner. Hamilton avoided him. Okay, is that a legal overtaking manoeuvre, Andrew? If you're attempting an overtaking manoeuvre, you have to leave your opponent room on the track. You cannot run them out of track room. That's an illegal manoeuvre in doing so. If you've carried too much speed where you've ran them out of track room, you've committed an infringement against the driving standards of the sport. Have you informed people of that, Andrew? You've told us it's controversial. You've told us that Verstappen got down the inside of Hamilton but went in deep. Describe going in deep, Andrew. Because you've gone in deep on every single one of us, haven't you, Andrew? You've gone in deep on all of those children, haven't you, Andrew? Whose minds you've abused with this article. You've gone in very deep, haven't you, Andrew? Carrying him to the outside of the curb long before the second right-handed part of the corner. Have you explained the dynamics of that, Andrew, and the legality of that, Andrew? Hamilton avoided him because he had to take evasive action, as he has so many times this season. That's wrong, isn't it, Andrew? And cut across the chicane, retaining the lead. Oh, you're drawing our attention to cutting a corner. Well, taking evasive action, should you having to jump out of the way of somebody that's going to hit you cause you to lose places in a race and then to gain that place through trying to bully you off the track? No, it should not. So what did Lewis Hamilton do? Oh, he retained his position. Is there a problem with that? No, there's not. The problem is with the guy performing an illegal manoeuvre, trying to bully his way ahead of you. Adopting an approach whereby if you don't move, I'm going to smash you off the track. There's a problem with people driving like that. Are you highlighting that, are you, Andrew? Or is that not how Red Bull feel about it, Andrew? He slowed a little over the rest of the lap to give back the advantage he considered himself to have gained. Oh, it's all about feelings, isn't it, Andrew? And the argument started on the pit wall. Oh, the debate. There's no argument, is there? An illegal manoeuvre that's been enabled for Max Verstappen. Verstappen said over the radio he has to give it back. Red Bull radioed race director Massey to insist that Verstappen was ahead and stays on track. Andrew telling us what Red Bull feel. Massey replied, he has forced him off. All the advantage was given back before the end of the first lap. The officials decided that no investigation was necessary, and when Verstappen was told of the decision, he said, Verstappen feels. That's incredible. What are they doing there? What did Lewis say there? Did Lewis say, he forced me off? Did he force him off? Yes. What are we talking about then? Why are we presenting what Verstappen feels? If Verstappen forced him off, and therefore you forced him off, you've actually committed an infringement. What you've actually done, you've evaded penalty yourself for the infringement that you've committed by projecting that the other person is the perpetrator. That is exactly what has taken place here. You've projected that you are the victim when you are the perpetrator. You've evaded penalty. You've tried to paint the other person as being in the wrong when it is entirely you. The recriminations will doubtless continue for some time, especially as Verstappen came into the weekend complaining that he was being treated differently than other drivers by the stewards. Again, the perpetrator, presenting that he's the victim. And Andrew Benson telling everybody, oh, yes, Max feels that he's been the victim for a long time now. The guy that has been enabled to perpetrate, driving his fellow competitor off the track in Brazil, no penalty. Oh, poor Max. They're all against Max, aren't they? Saudi, Max Verstappen brake tests his opponent. An absolutely disgusting move that gets you disqualified from Grand Prix racing. He does that in Saudi Arabia, doesn't get disqualified. Poor Max. The sport is against him. The victim, Max Verstappen. Max Verstappen drove Lewis Hamilton off the track at the first corner, turn 1 at Saudi Arabia. Oh, he's got to give that place back. Poor Max, the victim. Max Verstappen guilty of re-entering the track in an unsafe manner at the first corner, Saudi Arabia, making Hamilton have to take evasive action, in doing so losing position to Esteban Ocon. Poor Max Verstappen not punished, not penalised the standard 5-second penalty for that act. Got away with it again. Poor Max. Max once again feels he's the victim, says Andrew Benson. Poor Max when the sport red flags a safety car condition. A safety car where a car had gone into the barriers. The Mercedes team pitted their cars. Red Bull opted not to pit their car, meaning once those cars are bunched up, when then Verstappen did pit onto his tyres, Verstappen would lose a lot of positions. Instead, the governing body now red flag that event, meaning that not only can Max Verstappen stay in the lead of that race, which he inherited when the Mercedes team pitted for tyres, he can change his tyres for free. Poor Max, the victim of that situation as well. What about, again, at the same Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, the controversial one that Andrew's informing the world of, that once there's a second red flag due to another accident, and Max Verstappen causes the situation of Hamilton losing a place to Ocon through unsafe re-entry, through going off track at the first corner, committing that infringement, not getting penalised with it. Red Bull get to negotiate the grid for the restart order. Poor Max, the victim. The recriminations will doubtless continue for some time, especially as Verstappen came into this weekend complaining he was being treated differently. Max, the perpetrator, complaining that he is the victim of the situation. After the controversial Saudi Arabian Grand Prix last weekend, and Red Bull have been ratcheting the tension between the teams with a series of controversial claims. Are you exposing that dynamic, are you, Andrew? Are you telling people the nature of what Red Bull are claiming and the truth? Hamilton had the race until Luck into it. Is it Luck? Is it, Andrew? So the column inches dedicated to the first lap drama. So this is what he said about what took place on that first lap. First lap drama, okay, dedicated column inches, okay, is that much there, okay? That much there is what he's written about what took place on the first lap. And what took place on the first lap was Max Verstappen perpetrating a dive bomb and crowding his opponent off the track. Okay, it is an infringement and it gets penalised with a 5-second penalty. It gets projected as being Lewis Hamilton gaining an advantage by illegally leaving the track and Red Bull not liking that. And that then being controversial. That is how it gets reported. So, what we then get is Luck. Hamilton until Luck intervened. And that is the remainder of the article. And then we've got pictures, you see. And that's the end of the article after the pictures. So we dedicate that many column inches there, as you see on screen. First lap drama as well. All of that about that first lap drama. And the decisive thing, which Andrew tells us the decisive thing is the tyres that Verstappen's been allowed to now go on during that safety car period. This is the bit where Andrew describes it as being luck and dedicates this many column inches, which is what, half? First lap drama, that's an entire page. The luck there, what, 2/3 of that, yeah? So let's read about the luck that intervened from Andrew Benson, the BBC, the chief of the BBC, telling us about the luck. On track, though, the fundamental truth. Fundamental truth, Andrew. Do you know what that is, Andrew? Do you know what fundamental truth is, Andrew? For much of the race was that once Hamilton had got by, he and Mercedes simply had too much pace for Red Bull and Verstappen. Yeah, that actually is fundamental truth, isn't it? Incredible. He has been able to actually display one element of truth in this article, as they have for the past 4 races. Red Bull threw everything they could at Hamilton. Okay, this is the fundamental truth, right? After Hamilton and Verstappen pitted for fresh tyres, they left Perez out and ordered him to hold Hamilton back. Hamilton passed Perez down to turn 6 on lap 20, but was then repassed down the next straight. Well, we're waiting for the luck to intervene. Okay, we're waiting for the luck to intervene, Andrew. All right. Now, is this luck? Before we talk about the Perez incident, right? Think about horse racing. When we consider other racing sports, such as horse racing, is a trainer of a horse allowed to enter into a horse race, the horse that he wants to win, and also another horse that is there solely to block off all of the other horses, to impede them and to slow them down? Oh no, that's not allowed. Okay, is in athletics, a racing sport. For example, Great Britain enter athletes in the 1500 metres event. One of them is the athletes that they want to win the race, and the other athletes that enter into that race, they're there just to block off and hold up all of the other competitors by weaving around in front of them, slowing them down, and enabling the one that they want to win the time to build up a margin. Are they allowed to do that? Or are they allowed to try and get the other competitors that might be trying to lead the race, block them to enable their friend to catch up? Is that what's allowed in athletics? Is that what happens in that sport? What about cycling, another racing sport? Again, look at the Tour de France. Those teams in the Tour de France, are those teams allowed to use their competitors to block the road? So there's a team of 8 cyclists, for example. One of them starts going off into the distance. Are the other 7 allowed to just block the road so that none of the other competitors can go after them? Is that what's allowed in cycling? Have you explored that dynamic, being the expert of the sport, Andrew? Are all these real motor racing fans who think that Sergio Perez is the Minister of Defence in motor racing, all that. The Mexican Minister of Defence. Oh, that was incredible. Defensive driving. Is that allowed? What are the ethics of that in sport? Oh, but it's the real motor racing fans that you've told. Oh, yeah, you're the knowledgeable fans of the sport, aren't you? Yeah, you acknowledge that. You know that that's good defensive driving. Is that right, Andrew, as a sports correspondent? What's sport all about, Andrew? Is that what it's about? Racing sports like this? Do you have your team of linebackers in your racing team? Do you? Is that what it is? You have one person that you're trying to send off, and the rest are there to block everybody else. That's not how racing sports work, is it, Andrew? Do you want to take us through the FIA regulations relating to driver standards? Do you want to take us through the FIA International Sporting Code, all of which you can extract all of that information from, which would highlight Perez's actions as being illegal? Do you want to do that, Andrew? But you're talking about the look. We're going to get there. We're going to get there. Hamilton passed Perez down to turn 6 on lap 20, but was then repassed down the next straight. Perez was then ordered to back him up. Is that a valid order from Red Bull? Or is that a breach of FIA International Sporting Code? Tell us whether Red Bull are breaching FIA International Sporting Code, Andrew. Or no, you're presenting on behalf of Red Bull, aren't you? You can't allow Red Bull media to expose to the world the crimes of Red Bull, can you, Andrew? No. Red Bull is the healthiest drink on the planet, everybody. Drink Red Bull for life. Thank you, Andrew, salesman. Through the marina section of the track, and Verstappen closed what had been 8.7 seconds deficit to 1.7 seconds by the time Hamilton finally passed Perez a lap later. So we've had a competitor purposefully block another one to the detriment of 7 seconds being taken out of a lap time. Is that legal, Andrew? Is that ethical, Andrew? But Hamilton eased away again until a virtual safety car deployed to clear the stranded Alfa Romeo of Antonio Giovinazzi gave Red Bull an opportunity. They pitted Verstappen for fresh tyres, hoping to come back at Hamilton over the final 20 laps. But so strong was Hamilton that Verstappen was able to make only minimal inroads into his lead, and the race appeared to be over until the late drama snatched it, and what could have been his 8th world title from Hamilton's grasp. Hang on a minute. We've had a suspicious crash, Andrew, whereby Nicholas Latifi's race engineer has told Nicholas Latifi it has to be this lap. Nobody knows what that has to be, but then that lap, Nicholas Latifi crashes in a suspicious manner. That would set the alarm bells ringing, wouldn't it, Andrew Benson, the journalist? Then they deploy the safety car, which is standard practice, okay? Then you tell us that Michael Massey controversially ordered that the lapped cars in between Lewis Hamilton and Verstappen would not be allowed to overtake. Well, that's irrelevant, really, because the only thing relevant when you're telling us this is there were marshals on the track. Then the governing body, well, at the same time, the commentators, the broadcasters were telling us that the rules aren't the rules. That's rather strange, isn't it, Andrew? Then they break the rules of the sport. They ignore these chances of third place. They didn't remove the lapped cars out of the way of Carlos Sainz in third, enabling him to challenge for second position or even first position in that race. They didn't carry out the mandatory procedure. They brought the safety car in a lap too early to set up a last lap shootout, which you're not allowed to do. You've not explained any of this, have you, Andrew? You've given us an entire page of bullshit about what took place on lap 1. An entire page. This is first lap drama, all of that. The last lap thing that affected things, you have said this about it. Until the late drama snatched it. Until the late drama snatched it. What has he revealed? What's he revealed? Nothing. That's somebody covering up a fraud. Paid to cover up a fraud. This is a journalist. We expect better, ladies and gentlemen. You live in a world where you're being misinformed, disinformed, purposefully misled. That is an abuse. These people are projected as being an authentic source of information. The British Broadcasting Corporation projects itself as being a source of unbiased information. That would indicate that they should be representing themselves as presenting factual information. Factual, unbiased information. This is none of that. This is disinformation. This is encouraging you to believe this event to be a certain way, to believe certain things to be factors and to be relevant and to be the key, the crux of the matter. None of them are, and yet the true nature of it is never revealed. The true things that have impacted the outcome are not even spoken about, and that has diverted people's attention, diverted people's understanding of what constitutes the true nature of the fraud that was perpetrated. That is playing your role in the fraud, in informing people about that fraud in a manner that makes them think that it's not a fraud. That is being fraudulent. You are a fraud, Andrew Benson. You are a fraud, the BBC. Who is responsible for that? Well, the head of the BBC. You're responsible. You employed a man who is a fraud. The book stops at the top. Andrew Benson is going to get jail time. The head of the BBC is going to get jail time. That is what's going to be sought for these perpetrators. Perpetrators of fraud. Complicit with fraud. Truly disgusting. The mind conditioning media machine. Bit by bit, we need to wake everybody up on this planet to the notion of what's really going on. The information that we're being fed about so many things. It's an entire construct. It's being constructed for the benefit of those who are making billions out of it. And they're able to do that because they own the mind conditioning media to make us believe that the things are the way that they tell us they are. A pack of lies. An entire pack of lies. Wake people up. These are crimes. They've got that much power and influence that they influence the bodies that are there to deal with crime. This is how corrupt the system is. The regulatory bodies, Ofcom, regulators of this industry of media, holding these media to account so that they don't disinform, they don't present false information. No consequences for doing so. Who owns the regulator? Who controls the regulator? Who corrupts the regulator? Understand that. It's a fraud. The fraud office, that crime fighting agency, does nothing about it. Who owns the crime fighting agency that you're told is the crime fighting agency? And that crime fighting agency does what? The criminals. Does it go and punish the criminals? Does the crime fighting agency punish the criminals? No. How does that work then? Are the leaders of such all chums? All part of the same clubs? All part of the same private members clubs? Band of brothers, is it? Who knows? Who knows the true dynamics of all of these sorts of things? But it is controlled by wealth. And that gives them power. Power to influence people's minds. Of which Andrew Benson has fulfilled his role. And abused people. So, That was his first article, I believe, and we'll explore the details of his second one in the next video. Thank you for your time. Oh, please share this as well. We need to wake people up. All right. The only way people are going to be woken up is to expose them to the information, make them see the reality of the situation. Whether or not you're interested in Formula One, whether or not you've been turned off the sport because of the corruption, the corrupt show that it is, what's important is to use this as an example to make people see the true reality. Okay, because people don't have to like Formula One. I hate it. Okay, I'm not entertained by corruption. I don't trust what's going on in Formula One. So why would I invest my time and emotion into something that I doubt the authenticity of? But what it can be used as is an example to people of exactly what is going on and what took place. Criminality that has been misrepresented, and that shows systematic corruption. Systematic corruption that affects all of us because this same dynamic is happening in so many things. The whole notion of the economy and the whole financial structure of our supposed Western world is entirely corrupt. Okay, entirely corrupt. People are gradually waking up. Our political system is entirely corrupt. All of the things that impact our lives are entirely corrupt. And it's getting worse. And that is making our standards of living worse. And so people need to stand united and say, no, these are crimes. We demand that the criminals are held to account for their crimes. We've got human rights. We've got the rules that and the morals that we live by in order to have a fair society. That's all being eroded. It's all being eroded by those that do not care and only care about themselves and their own personal wealth and their own personal control and dominance. It's all part of the dynamic. Thank you for your time.